Your child's school is hosting a residential. Hooray! But your child doesn't want to go. Boo! But you want your child to go. Hooray! So what are you going to do about it? Or maybe your child does want to go, but they're a little bit worried. They're going to be sharing a sleeping space with other kids and they're not used to that. And they're worried that maybe they'll commit some kind of social faux pas. But fear not. For I'm going to share some proven methods to help you prepare your child for their very first residential trip. My name is Tamsin and I run the website theonlychildclub.net, and I'm dedicated to supporting you and your lovely one-child family, helping you all to grow, flourish and live life to the full. Now, what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to share some tips and tricks and stuff with you, but later on in the video I'm actually going to share some tips for your child just to help them if they're having to share a sleeping space with other kids. This is going to help them. So do stay on to the end while as I do that. It's the summer term, huzzah! It's the last term of the academic year. And it's the best term in my humble opinion. This is when all the fun things happen at school. Sports days, awards ceremonies, swimming galas, picnics to celebrate royal events. All right, maybe it's not the latter one in the country that you're in, and it might not be quite so often happening in the UK. I've got to admit, the late Queen living for as long as she did and reigning for as long as she did allow for quite a few big celebrations, like her Golden Jubilee, her Diamond Jubilee, her Platinum Jubilee, as well as royal weddings. In schools in the UK, we did celebrate those sort of things. And the other thing that happens in the summer term is schools can host or run residential trips. And it's not just schools, it may be other social clubs such as Girl Guides or Scouts, or maybe if your child is doing the Duke and Edinburgh Award, they'll be expected to do what's called an expedition, which is a residential trip. So before I continue, I'm just going to share what a residential trip actually is. A residential trip is a short or even a long extended stay arranged by an external organiser, and it gives your child the opportunity to stay away from home, stay with some other kids, learn some new skills and take part in some activities they may not have taken part in before. The accommodation is varied. Sometimes it's camping in tents, sometimes it's log cabins, or maybe it's a guest house or even a hotel. Some trips can even be like summer camp or could be in a different country. So for example, a friend of mine, her son is going to go to Italy with his school orchestra and he's only in year 8. Just quick caveat here, in the UK when we use the term year 8, I don't know what that grade is, but it's for 12 to 13-year-olds. So the first piece of advice I'm going to share with you might be a little bit too late for you and your child, but I'm going to share it anyway because this could help other parents. So please do share this with other parents. Even if you know someone who's expecting, this might be of help to them. So the first piece of advice is to start your child young, and I mean toddler young. Yeah, I said it. Send your child away, send your little toddler, your little tot away to a relative, a willing relative, so that they can get used to staying away from home, know that they're going to be safe with another trusted adult. And this is going to really help boost their confidence in the future. Now, I said at the beginning of this video that these are proven methods, and they are proven methods, and I'll explain why. When Sops was young, when she was about 2.5, 3 years old, her dad and I went on holiday. We went to the Gambia and she stayed with her grandparents, and it did her an absolute world of good. She had a marvellous time. She was spoilt rotten. She was able to spend time playing with her cousins, who she doesn't see that often. One of them was a year above her age. The other one is 2 years above her age. So they had some time together, which was lovely. And this is how she's been able to grow in confidence, knowing she'd be safe being away from her parents, and all was well. The other thing is if you let your child stay away, if you start early, if you let your child stay away from home just for a few days, they may actually develop a new skill, and they'll develop confidence in the company of others. So, for example, when I was little, apparently I spoke absolute gobbledygook. I had a bit of speech delay. I spoke babyish drivel. But for some strange reason, my older brothers could interpret my drivel, and so I didn't really need to bother learning how to speak properly and making myself clear. So my parents shipped me off to stay with my aunt and uncle, and it was only for about a week, and I had to make myself clear because I didn't have any siblings to interpret for me. So apparently when I got back, I could speak a lot better. Can you just imagine my mum and dad sending me off to my aunt and uncle, and then coming back, "Hello, mother and father. Thank you ever so much for letting me stay with my aunt and uncle. I had a splendid time. Now, please may I have a cup of tea?" Does your child need to master a skill? And are they a little bit too dependent on you? If so, perhaps this is a time to ship them off to a kindly relative where they can master the new skill in a different environment. Now, if your child is a little bit older and they still haven't had their first sleepover, then it's about time that they do. Now, you can start doing this by perhaps just setting up a tent in the back garden, and they can stay in the tent, maybe not on their own, maybe with you initially. Or you could invite one of their friends to stay over for a sleepover at your house in the hopes that their parents will return the favour. But it is very important for your child to get used to staying away from home. Now you may be thinking, well, duh, of course I'll let my only child, my precious little baby, stay away from home to give me a break and help them become more independent. This isn't always the case in some families. And I have worked as an academic mentor and as a youth worker before. I've organised residential trips for young people, and it surprises me that there are teenagers in years 8 and even 9 who still haven't gone on a residential, and they can be quite anxious about going. I find it quite difficult to understand this because Sops is a raving extrovert. She loves going on residentials and staying away from home. But some of these children, they don't want to leave their pets or their parents, mostly their pets. So these are some of the proven methods that I've used to encourage young people who haven't stayed away from home to come on residential trips. How about your child? If they had an opportunity to go on a sleepover or a residential trip, would they jump at the chance or would they be reluctant to go? Do let us know in the comments below. So here are some proven techniques to help your only child go on a residential trip. The first thing is to listen to them, listen to their concerns. Maybe do the active listening thing, so they share their fears and you just repeat it back to them, just so that you know exactly what their concerns are, and then you know how to address them. And I'm going to give you some pointers of how you can address them now. The second thing is to look at the itinerary together and to point out anything that might be of real interest to your child. So perhaps on day 3, they'll be going to the Harry Potter studio tour, and they might be really excited about this because they're a Harry Potter fan. If this is the case, then you can play on that. You're like, oh look, Harry Potter studio tour, that's brilliant. You can take your cloak. And they might get excited about that. The next thing is to provide other information for your child. So ask the organisation not only for the itinerary, but also for maybe some pamphlets or information about the accommodation they're going to be staying in, or the resort they'll be staying in, or maybe even the town. So they've just got an idea of what to expect. It'll also get them excited, hopefully, to make plans, especially when they know the kind of room that they're going to be staying in. I'm talking midnight feast, so make sure you pack things for midnight feast. Point number 4 is share stories of when you went on residentials when you were a child. Share the good stuff, the positive stuff. Share the bad stuff as well, just so that, they've got an idea of it's not all great stuff. It's about measuring those expectations, but share the funny stuff as well, especially the bad stuff became funny later on. I've got a friend who likes to joke about that. When something bad's happened, he's like, oh well, we'll all laugh about this in the future, and in some circumstances that's true. So for example, when I was in Girl Guides, we were camping one time, and at night we played this crazy chase game in the woods, and they were all running around with torches, but I didn't have a torch, and I thought it was stupid to have a torch anyway, because then I could see where the lights were, so I could chase them and catch them. So I was chasing them, and I ran straight into barbed wire. Yeah, it really hurt, and blood everywhere. I screamed the place down because, my pain threshold was this big. And also, I wasn't quite sure of the damage that was done. It was quite a deep cut. I think I've got a little bit of a scar there, but we all lived. We all lived to tell the tale, and it's funny now. Next point is point number 5. Help your child practice independence. So maybe they can be packing their school packed lunch or making their bed. Yeah, get them making their bed if they're not already every single morning, because that's the sort of thing they'll be expected to do when they're on a residential. This is the really cool thing with residentials. Kids should be encouraged to take part in the household chores, so cleaning and washing the dishes and things like that. It helps them build their domestic skills in these areas. The next thing is reassure safety. So there are some children out there, bless their little cotton socks, they're really adventurous and they don't care about health and safety, and they just full on take on every activity. If your child is like that, then you need to tell them they have to listen very carefully to the instructor and follow everything the instructor tells them. But there's other children who a little bit more timid, a little bit more pedantic about health and safety and hygiene. And for those children, you need to, if you've got a child like that, you need to reassure him or her that the organisers know what they're doing, that they've been organising these kind of trips for a long time, that they're fully trained in health and safety and first aid, and your child will be safe. Point number 7 is create a checklist of things to pack and give your child a copy of the itinerary. When you do the checklist, this moves nicely on to point number 8, is that you pack together with your child. So when you have your list, I was going to provide a packing list, but then I thought, no, I won't do that, because it depends on the trip that your child goes on. If your child is going on a skiing trip, then packing shorts and a t-shirt might not be the best thing. So ideally, the organisers of the residential trip will have already given you some kind of packing list to use. Just have 2 columns with the list. So one that you're ticking everything as you're putting it in the bag, and then the other column your child can tick off as they are packing the bag ready to go home. So hopefully there'll be no lost property left behind. There will be lost property left behind. There is always lost property left behind. Right, let's go on to point number 9. That's 9 fingers. I don't even know why I'm holding up 9 fingers. I've got 13 points. I don't have 13 fingers. Not quite sure what's going to go on there. So point number 9 is encourage your child with social interactions. Now your child may be going with a group of kids that they already know, they're already comfortable with, and they're probably already making some plans about the residential, like midnight feasts and pranks that they're gonna do on their teeth. However, if your child is going to a bigger event where there's going to be a lot more kids from maybe other schools or other social groups, they might be a little bit anxious about that. So if there is an opportunity to connect your child with the wider group, then all the better. So it's a little different for SOPs, but I'll give an example of this. Last year, SOPs was doing her confirmation at church, and the church group, they were going to go to the Dyson youth event, Ignite, but no one else in her confirmation group wanted to stay over the night. But Sophia, being the raving extrovert that she is, she was totally up for it. So what we did was we contacted the organisers of the event, and they arranged for SOPs to sleep in the tent where the Norwich Cathedral kids were staying in, confirmation group was staying in, and SOPs had a great time. She made new friends, always hunky-dory, and I think they've set up a WhatsApp group now, so that's the sort of thing you might want to do with your child. Find out more about the other kids who are going beforehand. Point number 10 is milestones. If this is your child's, well, this whole video is about your child's first residential. If it was a big success, if your kid comes back and he's like, wow, that's amazing, I loved it, it was fantastic, rather than your child calling you the very first day, saying, I want to go home, I miss you so much. If they come back and it's all good, then celebrate it and make a big to-do about it so that it boosts their confidence and they will feel happier to go on future residentials. Point number 11, I'll do this and then this, right? Point number 11 is a bit of a controversial one, okay? So I'm going to be very interested in your views on this one. So do put them in the comments below. That'd be very interesting to read. It's stay connected, all right? So we live in a day and age where mobile phones is a thing. A lot of kids have them. So when they go on residentials, they're still in contact with their parents. And on the residentials that I've run, I see it all the time. Generally, it's a good thing. Generally, they just say, hi, mum, dad, I've done this day, and they're excited, and the parents are excited for them, and they want to see images of their pet dog or cat, and it's all good and it's fine. But sometimes the child connects with their parents on a phone call and a video chat, and then they suddenly feel really homesick and they just want to go home. So it's not always a good thing. Just know your child. Just think about whether it's going to be a good thing or not such a good thing for them to be in contact with you throughout the trip. It might be the case that they can't be in contact with you. Some of the Duke of Edinburgh expeditions are up in the hills in the middle of nowhere where, a smartphone is of no use to man or beast. They need to have a Nokia 3310 or something like that to communicate with people. So it might not even be an option. So I'll be interested in knowing what you have to say about that. Would you let your child use a smartphone when they're on a residential trip to contact you? On a side note, I don't know about you, but when we went on school trips when we were kids and there wasn't mobile phones, all we would do was we'd all crowd into a little shop and buy a postcard. We'd write in the postcard, stick a stamp on it, send it off. Then we'll go back home after the residential, and about 2 weeks later, we get the postcard. Right, the next one is 12, okay? This one is allow your child to take a favourite toy, something of comfort to them that they can snuggle in bed and they can feel, cosy and comfortable and secure. but just make sure you put your toy's name onto the packing list so they remember to pack it afterwards. You know, you don't want your child losing maybe their favourite toy. When I went to York back in the day, I took Meow. Look at that, old and tatty, very well loved. That's something I noticed a lot when I run residentials for young people, even teenagers, even like A-level students. They'll bring their favourite toy, and it's a very well loved toy, so it's kind of cute. And last but not least, 13, stay positive. Stay positive for your child, okay? But don't overdo it. There's nothing worse than maybe having too high expectations of a trip and only being left disappointed. So, you know, just have a balance when it comes to showing positivity about the trip, but also letting them know, be grounded and let them know it's not Disney World, unless it is Disney World, and then they're very lucky. I hope you're finding this video really, really helpful. If you want more videos like this, please do tap the subscribe button down below so I can produce a lot more videos to be of help to you and to your precious little family. That would be really helpful for us, and it will help the channel. So I'm just going to go on to the second part of this video. It's very brief, but this is aimed at your child. So if your child's not in the room, go call them. Go, Jimmy, or whoever your child is. Get them in front of the screen. I'm going to share some tips with them. Right, kiddo, so this is your very first residential, and maybe it's the first time that you're going to be sharing a sleeping space with other kids. So I've got top 5 tips on how you can show good etiquette, which means good manners, when sharing a sleeping space with other children, so they'll like you, because if you break these rules, they will not like you. Rule number 1 is no roughhousing, no play fighting, okay? Now, you might want to do a little bit of a pillow fight, but it's got to be very limited. It's got to be only if the organisers of and your adult supervisors agree to it, but you got to have it very, very brief, and don't restart it, okay? Don't push it. Nobody likes that. The next thing is, point number 2 is have good personal hygiene. That means give yourself a good wash before you go to bed, or even better, a shower. Make sure you wash all over really nice smelling soap or shower gel. Make sure you really clean your feet, because I imagine they've got especially stinky doing the sort of activities you're going to be doing in the day. So make sure you're clean and fresh when you go to bed, because no one wants to smell your stinky feet during the night. Moving on swiftly to point number 3, that's along the same lines. Make sure you brush your teeth really thoroughly. Use mouthwash. Don't just use mouthwash. Use your toothbrush and toothpaste, because nobody wants to smell your dragon breath during the night. And believe me, people can smell it. Okay, I know, I've been in these situations. I can smell bad breath anywhere. Point number 4 is don't be the chatterbox. What you might find, especially if this is your first residential and sharing a sleeping space with others, you're going to be really excited and you're going to be knitting at it all night long. Not just you, other people. But at some point, what will happen is people will say, right now, come on, it's getting really late, or you're going to be shouted at by the supervisors, the adult supervisors. You will be shouted at by them. At some point, you need to stop it. Okay, and when there's a lull, when the conversation has stopped, don't be the person to restart it with a random stupid conversation, okay? Just, fall asleep with everyone else. Or if you can't sleep, close your eyes, count sheep or something. And the last one, point number 5, is respect personal space, okay? Don't sit on other people's beds. And don't go through their personal belongings. I know it's pretty obvious, but unfortunately this is something I've observed when I've run residential before now, and no one's necessarily stealing from other people, but people do invade people's space, and you generally have very little personal space when you're sharing a sleeping space with other people. So that's about it. I hope you have a wonderful first residential. do let us know where you're going. Put it in the comments below. I want to know. It'd be really exciting. And I will see you on the next video. Toodles.